goodness, it is 8:42 New York time, and I got to my regular unit, and they took my patient away, my black guy. Now I'm getting switched units. This is exactly what happened before at the other hospital. As soon as I told somebody, like management, and tried to advocate for my patient, they take the patient away from me, and then they move me. You know, guys, here's the thing. Let me try and put things into context for you, okay? I know not everybody's gonna live. I know we're gonna have a shit ton of people die. But these people aren't dying from COVID. Let me give you several examples here. An anesthesiologist intubated the patients, and they couldn't get the SATs up. And for about 5 hours, we were waiting on a chest x-ray to confirm that the placement was wrong. And in the meantime, while we're waiting for that, and we've told the anesthesiologist that it was placed wrong, because literally only one side of his fucking chest is inflating. He dies. A patient had a heart rate of 40, and the resident started doing chest compressions on him, which is not what you do. And then he decides to push epi. He throws some pads on him to defibrillate the guy in bradycardia. Okay, he has a heart rate of 40 and a stable, bradycardic rhythm. We just need to give him some atropine and pace him. He fucking defibrillates him and kills him. There was a nurse who placed an NG tube into some guy's lungs and filled his lungs with tube feeding. There was a nurse who confused a long-acting insulin with a short-acting insulin and gave 30 units of a fast-acting insulin and killed the guy. It's just here they're just gonna let them rot on the vent. They're medically mismanaging these patients. I told you about the patient where all that purulent drainage just kept seeping into his lungs because the ET tube cuff was leaking. And I finally figured that out. And I kept saying, hey, you know what? His white blood cell count is steadily we're having a problem with it. Do you want to start some antibiotics? Well, does he have a fever? And I said, no, he doesn't have a fever. They didn't want to start antibiotics. Day shift nurse finally got a chest x-ray. He has full-blown pneumonia now. We have a nurse who, fell asleep at the fucking nurse's station while we were all in rooms, and her norepinephrine ran out, and the guy had no fucking blood pressure and didn't perfuse his brain, and now I'm pretty sure he's brain dead. That same nurse is now running a CRRT machine, a dialysis-like machine, that she has never done before. She said she'll figure it out. I'm pretty fucking smart, and I figure a lot of shit out, but I would never attempt to try and figure out a CRRT machine on the fly. And we have a nurse who does CRRT in there. She has a different patient load. We told them, hey, let's just swap these nurses so the one that knows how to work this machine can work this machine. But they didn't want to do that. And this is why I freaked the fuck out yesterday. Because nobody is listening. They don't care what is happening to these people. They don't. I'm literally coming here every day and watching them kill them.
Hi, guys. You just saw the video of Nicole Sorotek. That was recorded and put out to the world in May of 2020. In May of 2020. Another nurse came forward, Erin Marie. She got some traction from the multi-million-dollar nonprofits and the million-dollar podcasters, and then they dropped the story. I have been waiting since 2020 for someone to follow up on the live reports from expert eyewitnesses that people were being murdered under the cover of COVID in U.S. hospitals. I waited all 2020. We did a long interview with Erin in 2020, and I waited for 2020 for someone to take this story on. I waited in 2021. I waited 2022, and by 2023, I realized if we didn't do it, nobody was going to do it. So the cover of the book is up in the right-hand corner of somewhere in your field division. This is what we got here. This is not an inconsequential book. Amazingly, it is the only book that talks about the important story of the hundreds of thousands of people who went through the COVID hospital meat grinder. We don't know how many of them were outright murdered, but we have plenty of eyewitness testimony that a whole lot of them were. We get into the details. We get into how they were killed. We get into the government bureaucrats that ordered them essentially to be killed. We get into the very well organized program to harass and intimidate and threaten nurses who spoke up, not only when they were on the job, but when they quit, they were followed. It's all in the book. It's all in the book. 400 and I don't know how many pages. 489 pages. And this is our proof copy. It doesn't look very good. That's why I'm not going to hold it up too much. We interviewed 12 experts, 10 of them experienced nurses, one of them an expert in intubation and venting, which is how they killed a whole lot of people, and a really important interview with a brilliant team, with a representative of a brilliant team that traced the dollars. How were these hospitals incentivized to murder patients? We know the answer. It's in the covers of this book, and you won't find this anywhere else. You're not going to find it on any of the $1 Million podcasts. No crusading investigative reporter has bothered to cover it. None of the multi-million-dollar nonprofits that have collected millions and millions of dollars to supposedly help in this situation have bothered to cover this. We not only cover what happened, we cover how it happened, and the most important thing is we cover the solution. The nurse experts in this book have provided us with concrete solutions of how we can address this very, very serious problem we have with U.S. hospitals. They've created organizations, they've created resources. You can reach out to them, you can contact them, you can get help from them. Okay, we've had way too much COVID material produced that just creates despair. Okay, this book shows a lot of dark stuff, but it also shows the way out. It's like the only book that does, frankly. If anybody can tell me another COVID book that shows how we get out of the mess that we're in. And by the way, we cannot rely on the $1 Million podcasters or the multi-million-dollar COVID resistance groups or any of those people. It's pretty obvious they ain't going to do the job. They're good at collecting money, but they're not going to do anything else. So here's what I'm asking. This book could save your life. It could save the life of a loved one. You may have already been in the situation of having a loved one in a hospital and knowing they're being abused, knowing they're being injured, and maybe even knowing they've been killed or being killed. You've either had that experience or you haven't. If you have had it, you understand. And I think you'll want to get and support this book and get multiple copies and make sure it's in the hands of your library and as many people as you possibly can. If you haven't had the experience, I recommend, health, wealth, happiness. I mean, there's only a few things that hold human life together, and one of them is health. And if you really believe that our healthcare system has your best interests at heart, I want to strongly urge you to at least look at the other side of the story and to be prepared. You don't want to walk into one of those hospitals or find yourself or a loved one in a serious medical situation and have to go in blind. You need to go in with your eyes wide open. And this book's the answer. This book's the answer. And amazingly, and I'll end with this, it is the only effort that any group or individual has made to carefully and thoroughly document the most atrocious criminal thing that happened during COVID. Yet it's terrible they closed the schools down. It's terrible they closed businesses. We were outspoken about that the first day. It's criminal that they coerce people into taking vaccinations. But this book documents how people who went to the hospital with COVID symptoms, just symptoms of a cold, of a flu, of respiratory distress, and were taken out in body bags. They didn't die of COVID. That's the bottom line. They didn't die of COVID. And we have expert veteran nurses who saw the operations firsthand, and we have interviews with them. This is the only place you're going to find this material. Hopefully, this is going to prick the consciences of the investigative journalists out there and the $1 Million podcasters and the multi-million-dollar COVID resistance groups to take a look at this very serious and ongoing problem. It ain't over. It ain't over. There are places, there are jurisdictions where if you go in with COVID symptoms, you're coming out in a body bag. And we explain why that's so and what you can do to protect yourself. So buy the book, talk about the book, tell the $1 Million podcasters about it. If you're a supporter of one of these multi-million-dollar COVID resistance groups, tell them about it. This is an important book. It's a disgrace that it's only coming out in 2023. Why wasn't this story covered? Why wasn't this story addressed, and why isn't it addressed on an ongoing basis? Because the problem is ongoing. The kids are back in school, the businesses are open, everybody has figured out that the vaccinations were bullshit and harmful. The injuries and deaths that are taking place in these hospitals, in these corrupt, incompetent hospitals, is ongoing right now. Okay, and the ball has been massively dropped. Okay, and that's what this book is all about. It's to fill in that gap. Please support it. Please buy it. Please buy multiple copies of it, and please tell other people about it for your sake and for their sake. I didn't need, believe me, I didn't need to put this thing together. This was more labor intensive than 100 brass check videos, but no one else was going to do it, and had to be done. I've done my part. I really appreciate if you do your part and go out and buy the book. And I just have to give this postscript. The reason we have to use Amazon is because our independent booksellers have let us down. They will not carry this book. We learned that with the Kennedy book on Fauci, and I'm not going through that again. All right. So I don't like Amazon either. They happen to be our only way to get this information out, so I'm using it. Please buy one copy. Please buy multiple copies. Please make sure that this book is in the hands of the people who need it, which basically is every single person in this country that is ever going to find themselves or a loved one in a hospital, and needs to protect them from what goes on in hospitals these days. All right. Thanks a lot, guys. We're going to win. We're going to win. And for the first time ever, we have valid, real partners, and that's these wonderful nurses. You're going to learn about the heroism of these nurses and the great things they did, and the courage they showed in standing up to this monstrous system, and the organizations that they have created post-COVID to support people so that we never go through this again. No American or anybody on this planet ever need go through this horror again. But we've got to know who these nurses are. We've got to know about their organizations, and we've got to support them. That's the way we win. We don't get no more money to the $1 million podcasters or the multi-million-dollar COVID people. Enough of that. They had 3 years to get this right, and they didn't do squat, in my opinion, except produced mountains and mountains of almost incomprehensible gibberish. Okay, we need to fight, and we need to fight now, and we need to fight in a practical way. And this book is the way forward. So please support it. Please buy it. Please get it. Please share it. Please talk it up. Thank you very much.